I was sitting at my kitchen table when my son's wife told me, through the screen door, not even opening it all the way, that I had shown up without calling first. I had driven 40 minutes from Macon to bring them a pot of chicken and dumplings. It was my son's birthday. I had made that same pot every year of his life for 37 years. She said she hoped I understood. I said I did. I drove home. I put the pot in my own refrigerator and ate it alone over 3 days. That was not the moment I decided to stop. I wish I could tell you it was. It would make for a cleaner story. The truth is messier than that. I kept going for almost 2 more years after that birthday. I kept telling myself it was just her, that my son still loved me, that families go through rough patches, that I should be patient and not cause drama. I told myself a lot of things, standing at that kitchen sink, washing dishes for one person, looking out at the backyard my late husband Raymond had put a tire swing in for our boy back in 1991. The swing was still there. My grandson had never once sat in it. Let me back up. My name is Diane, and I am 68 years old. I live in a small house in Macon, Georgia that Raymond and I bought in 1987. Raymond passed 11 years ago. Cardiac arrest, quick, no warning. It was the worst thing that ever happened to me, until it wasn't, which is something I never expected to say. We had one son. His name is Thomas. Tommy, we called him when he was small. He goes by Thomas now. His wife prefers it. His wife's name is Brielle. I want to be careful how I describe Brielle, because I know how these things sound from the outside. I am not a bitter mother-in-law. I am not the kind of woman who thinks no one is good enough for her son. I genuinely wanted to love her. I tried. I brought her flowers when they first started dating. I asked about her job, her family, her interests. I remembered small things she mentioned and followed up on them the next time I saw her. I did everything I knew how to do. Brielle was polite to my face and something else entirely when she thought I wasn't watching. I noticed it in small ways first. The way she would leave the room when I arrived. The way Thomas would look at her before answering even simple questions I asked him, like where they wanted to go for Christmas, or whether he wanted me to keep his grandmother's cast-iron skillet, a look that lasted half a second, but said everything. He was checking. He was always checking. They got married in 2018. Beautiful wedding. I paid for a portion of it, $7,000, which was not nothing on a retired schoolteacher's pension. I did it because I loved my son and I wanted that day to be everything he dreamed of. I wrote the check, and I meant every cent of it. After the wedding, things shifted. Not dramatically at first, just small closings, fewer calls, shorter visits. Thomas started asking for things. Not big things in the beginning. Could I cover his car insurance for a few months while they got settled? Could I float the electric bill while Brielle transitioned between jobs? Could I put the streaming subscription in my name because mine had a better rate? Small things, reasonable things. I said yes every time because I was his mother and because I thought it was temporary. It was not temporary. I have a pension from 31 years of teaching middle school English in Bibb County. It is not extravagant. It is enough for one person living simply in a paid-off house. It was not enough for what was slowly being asked of it. Over time, the requests stopped being requests. They became assumptions. Thomas would call on the 15th of every month, not to talk, not to ask how I was, but to confirm that I had sent the money. The amounts had grown. Car insurance became car insurance plus a car payment on a second vehicle. The electric bill became utilities across the board. The streaming subscription became a list, music, 2 video services, a premium cable package, a gym membership that Brielle used twice in the time I was paying for it. There was also the credit card. Thomas had put me as an authorized user on one of his cards years ago for an emergency, he said. Somewhere along the way that flipped, I was paying the minimum on a balance I had not created. I did not fully understand this until I sat down one evening and really looked at my bank statements. That evening was in October of last year. I printed out 12 months of statements. I sat at the kitchen table, the same table where I eat alone, the same table my mother gave me when Raymond and I moved in, and I went through every line. I had a yellow highlighter and a legal pad. I wrote down every payment that had gone to Thomas or Brielle or anything connected to their household. It took me 2 hours. When I finished, I had filled one side of a legal pad page and started on the second. 93 separate payments over 12 months. And when I pulled 2 years back, because something made me keep going, some cold clarity I had not felt in a long time, the number was 114. I sat with that number for a long time, 114 payments, not $114. 114 individual transactions flowing out of my account and into their life. Rent assistance when they moved into a bigger apartment because the old one was, in Brielle's words, not where she saw herself. Groceries when they claimed the month was tight. While I could see from Thomas's social media that they had spent a long weekend in Savannah. A deposit on a storage unit I had never seen and did not know the contents of. I am not a dramatic woman. Raymond used to say I had the steadiest nerves of anyone he knew. I did not cry that night. I just sat there with my legal pad and my yellow highlighter and felt something settle in me like sediment dropping to the bottom of still water. I thought about the birthday chicken and dumplings in my refrigerator. I thought about the screen door. I thought about what my mother used to say, "You teach people how to treat you, Diane. Every time you let something go, you're writing them a permission slip." I had written a lot of permission slips. The next morning, I called my friend Ardell, who I have known since our daughters were in the same ballet class in 1993, and I told her what I had found. Ardell is a retired accountant. She did not gasp or get emotional. She said, "Bring me the statements." I drove to her house, and we sat at her dining room table, and she went through everything with a precision I could not have managed on my own because I was too close to it. Ardell said, "Diane, this is not you helping your son. This is you funding a lifestyle." She was right. I knew she was right. Brielle and Thomas were not struggling. Thomas had a good job. He managed logistics for a distribution company, solid salary. Brielle worked in marketing. Between the two of them, they earned more than Raymond and I had ever earned combined. They drove new cars. They took vacations. They ate at restaurants I could not afford to eat at on my pension. And I was paying their gym membership. I asked Ardell what she thought I should do. She said that was up to me, but that I should go in with my eyes open and a plan, not in a moment of anger. She said anger makes mistakes. Clarity makes decisions. I went home, and I did not call Thomas. I did not confront Brielle. I sat with it for 2 more weeks. I prayed about it. I talked to Raymond's photograph on the bookshelf, which I know sounds like something, but it helps me think. Then I made a list. Not of grievances, of accounts. Every subscription, every automatic payment, every card, everything tied to my name or my money that flowed into their life. I did it methodically, the way I used to grade papers, systematically, without rushing, making sure I missed nothing. And then, on a Tuesday morning in November, I started making calls. I called the insurance company first. Took me 20 minutes on hold, but I got it done. Removed Thomas from my auto policy, which also dissolved the umbrella coverage I had been maintaining on his behalf without realizing that's what it was. The woman on the phone was professional and efficient and did not need to know any of my reasons. I called the bank. I closed the joint account that Thomas and I had opened years ago for emergencies, and that had become a pass-through for his monthly financial management. I moved those funds to an account in my name only at a different bank. Ardell had suggested that. She was right about that too. I went online and canceled the subscriptions one by one. It took me the better part of a Wednesday afternoon. I wrote down the confirmation number for every single cancellation and kept them in a folder. I called the credit card company and disputed the authorized user status. The balance was theirs. I made that clear to the representative and followed up in writing as they requested. And then I called my son. I had thought about this call more than any of the others. I had rehearsed it with Ardell, not because I am a rehearsing type of person, but because I knew I needed to say what I meant and mean what I said without either crumbling or escalating. I had seen what both of those looked like in other people's lives. I did not want either of them. Thomas answered on the second ring. He sounded distracted. I could hear the television in the background. I said, "Thomas, I need to tell you something, and I need you to listen without interrupting." He said, "Mom, is everything okay?" I said everything was fine with my health, if that was what he was asking, and then I told him what I had found. I told him the number 114 payments, over 2 years, and counting. I told him I had already made the calls, that the accounts were closed and the subscriptions were canceled, and my name was no longer attached to their financial life in any way. There was a silence that lasted long enough that I thought the call had dropped. Then he said, "Mom." I said, "I'm not angry, Thomas. I'm not calling to fight. I'm calling to tell you the truth because I think you deserve to hear it from me directly." He said Brielle would be upset. I said, I understood that. He said they were going to be in a difficult position. I said I understood that too. And then I said the thing I had practiced most carefully, the thing I had written out and rewritten until I believed every word of it. I love you. I have always loved you. And because I love you, I am not going to keep doing something that is hurting both of us. You are a grown man with a good job and a life I helped make possible in more ways than you know. It is time for you to live that life without my account numbers. He said he needed time to process. I said that was fine. I said my door was open when he was ready. We hung up. I stood in my kitchen for a moment. The afternoon light was coming through the window the way it does in November in Georgia, low and golden, and it fell across the kitchen table and the chair where Raymond used to sit. I felt something I had not felt in a very long time. Not happiness exactly, not relief, though that was part of it. Something quieter than either of those, something closer to being exactly where I was supposed to be. Brielle called me 3 days later. I let it go to voicemail. She called again the following day, and the day after. The messages ranged from confused to pointed. In the last one, she said that I was being selfish and that family was supposed to support each other. I sat with the phone in my hand after I listened to that last message. I thought about the screen door. I thought about the pot of chicken and dumplings I drove 40 minutes to bring on my son's birthday and was not invited inside to deliver. I did not call her back. Thomas came to the house 5 weeks later. Alone. No Brielle. He knocked. He didn't use his key, which I noticed. He stood on the porch and looked older than I had seen him look in years, tired in a real way, not just end-of-week tired. I opened the door and let him in. We sat at the kitchen table. I made coffee. I did not say anything for a while. I let him start. He said he was sorry. He said he didn't realize how much time had passed, how much had accumulated, how it had all started to feel normal in a way that maybe it shouldn't have. He said Brielle was. He paused there, and I did not fill the silence for him. He said Brielle was going through some things and that he thought he had been handling it, but he saw now that he had mostly just been passing the weight somewhere else. He said, "I passed it to you, Mom." I said, "Yes, you did." He said he didn't know what came next for him and Brielle. He said some things had come to light about how their finances had been managed, that he was still sorting through. He didn't elaborate, and I didn't press. That was between them. He asked if I still had the cast-iron skillet, his grandmother's. I went to the cabinet and got it out. It is heavy, black, seasoned with decades of use. I set it on the table between us. He put his hand on it for a moment without saying anything. He said, "I've been thinking about the tire swing." I said, "I knew." He said, "I want to bring Elliot out here sometime. If that's okay." Elliot is my grandson. He is 7, he has his father's eyes and Raymond's nose, and I have watched him grow up mostly through photographs on a phone screen. I said that would be more than okay. I said I had been waiting. He stayed for 2 hours. We didn't solve everything. We didn't even try. There is still a long road ahead with Thomas, and I am old enough to know that apologies are the beginning of something, not the end. But when he left, and I stood at the door and watched his car go down the driveway, something in me did not feel like watching anymore. It felt like waiting, the good kind of waiting, the kind that believes something is coming. I went back inside and washed the coffee cups. I dried them and put them away. That evening I sat in the living room and I took out the knitting project I had not touched in almost a year. A blanket in yellow and white, started before any of this happened, still sitting in the same canvas bag next to Raymond's chair. I picked up where I had left off. The stitches came back to my hands quickly. They always do. I don't tell this story to make Brielle a villain or to make myself a saint. Life is not sorted that cleanly. I made mistakes too. I should have looked at my statements long before I did. I should have said something the first time I felt the ground shift. I should have understood much sooner that there is a difference between giving someone a hand and giving someone a hold on you. I know that difference now. My mother was right. You teach people how to treat you. Every time you let something go, you write them a permission slip. I stopped writing permission slips, and slowly, carefully, I am learning to write something different, the kind of letter that leaves room for a grandson to visit, for a son to knock instead of using his key, for a pot of chicken and dumplings to be eaten warm, together at the kitchen table, with the afternoon light falling across the chairs where the people I love are sitting. That is what I am working toward. One Tuesday morning at a time. I have had a lot of time to think about how things get to where they get, not in a bitter way. I am past bitter mostly, but in the way you think about things when you are 68 and you finally have quiet enough to hear yourself. What happened between me and Thomas and Brielle did not happen because they were evil people. I want to be clear about that. What happened because small things were allowed to become normal. One payment became two. Two became a monthly assumption. An assumption became an expectation. An expectation became an entitlement. And all the while, I kept saying yes, because I thought that was what love looked like. I thought love meant filling every gap you could find in the people you cared about. I was wrong about that. Not about love, about the filling. There is a difference between helping someone stand and holding them up so long that they forget they have legs. I learned that difference late, later than I should have. But I learned it. Thomas is a good man underneath what happened. I believe that. The proof is that he came to my door alone without being asked and put his hand on his grandmother's skillet and could not find words for a moment. That is not the gesture of someone without a conscience. That is the gesture of someone who got lost and is finding his way back. People can do both of those things, lose themselves and return. The returning is what matters. Brielle is a harder conversation. I do not know what her story is beneath the surface. I do not know what she was told about what she deserved, or what she was afraid of, or what was driving the need to accumulate and protect and push away. I do not need to know. That is her work to do, not mine. What I know is this. The moment I stopped absorbing the consequences of other people's choices, the picture became very clear very fast. Not just for me. For Thomas, too. He could not see what was happening as long as I was buffering it. The day I stopped, the real shape of things appeared. That is not cruelty. That is clarity. Sometimes the most honest thing you can do for someone is stop protecting them from what they have built. I think about my mother's words more now than I ever did when she was alive. You teach people how to treat you. She said it simply, the way she said most true things, standing at the kitchen counter, not even looking up. I heard it then and filed it away as something old people said. I understand it now as something that costs you everything if you ignore it long enough. Courage is not loud. I was not loud through any of this. I made phone calls. I printed statements. I sat with Ardell at her dining room table and let a retired accountant tell me the truth I already knew. Then I went home and made decisions quietly, one at a time. That is what strength looked like for me at 68. Not a confrontation, not a speech, just a Tuesday morning and a list and the willingness to follow through. I want to sit across from Thomas at this kitchen table with Elliot between us and a pot of something warm on the stove. I want that enough to have done the hard thing that makes it possible. That is what I am working toward, one clear-eyed day at a time.